What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hands On channel. I guess I've got a little bit of good news to share with you guys today. I believe it was earlier today or yesterday, Matt Gaetz came onto the floor of the Congress and basically called out Kevin McCarthy and said, hey man, you agreed to try to impeach Biden. What's the deal? Why aren't you holding up to your end of the bargain? And he put a lot of pressure on Speaker McCarthy. And I'm assuming against Speaker McCarthy's will, he came out and filed for impeachment inquiry, which is not the same thing as an impeachment. They're basically trying to decide if they have enough evidence to make anything stick to this guy, Dirty Joe Biden, right? And I would argue they have ample supply, mountains of evidence to use against this guy, but all they're focusing on are the, and they should be focusing on them to some degree, but they're only focusing mainly on the, the money and the different things that Biden was getting in, the bribes and stuff that the Biden crime family has been receiving all along. Even back when he was vice president, he was doing all sorts of stuff, taking classified documents, putting them beside his Corvette out in his garage. You guys know the story. But one of the things I would like to see is an impeachment on the southern border. And I think earlier on, Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote up articles of impeachment for Joe Biden related to the border, but McCarthy didn't mention those in his impeachment inquiry today. See, I think that's one of the biggest things because it says clearly in the Constitution, I think it's Article 4, Section 4, don't quote me on that, but somewhere in the Constitution where it's basically telling the different offices what their duties are. One of the duties of the Congress, the Senate, and the President, and the states is to provide a Republican form of government. And that doesn't mean, like, oh yeah, I only vote Republican. It means that it's a Republican form of government for all of the states. And also, this is the big catch right here. They also have to protect the United States of America and the states' borders against invasion. And so I've talked about this. I've pounded this drum over and over and over. You guys that are, longtime followers of my channel, I've already talked about all of this stuff in depth. But basically there's that clause. I think it's Article 4, Section 4, where it says they have to, the President of the United States, the Congress has to protect the United States citizenry against invasion, right? And clearly we have an invasion going on the southern border. I'm hearing news today that the Democrats, 100 some odd Democrats in Congress got together and basically they're saying Joe Biden is not doing enough to give the Democrats basically, free reign on our country. All the rights that only citizens normally get to take part in. These Democrats are pushing for this to be fast-tracked and to go ahead and get them work visas and all this other stuff that is definitely a violation of our current system and our current laws, but they're trying to put more pressure on Biden as if he's not doing enough to undermine the United States of America and the people, we the people of the United States of America. So that's what I would like to see. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to include the border invasion because no one has actually classified it as an invasion. And I don't really understand why that hasn't happened. On a congressional level, on a national level, we need to have our Republicans, because the Democrats aren't going to do it, they need to be banding together and saying, hey, this is an invasion. This is not just immigration as normal. This is an invasion that's taking place. We've got so many people we've lost track of and who knows how many of them snuck in unchecked altogether. So, it's in the millions and millions right now. I believe it was around 5 million that have come in since Joe Biden kicked the door right wide open and rolled out the red carpet for these people. I've shown the pictures before of all these immigrants coming up through the southern border with, pro Joe Biden shirts on and stuff like that. Where did they get those shirts? Where did they get that money to make that long travel, in many cases across seas and across oceans and different things like that to get to Mexico to even come in? Well, I would argue it's the Open Society Foundation or something, George Soros's foundation. I would argue he's the money man behind all of this illegal invasion that's taking place right now. And not only, I know it's been a meme and a joke for a long time on South Park. They took our jobs, they took our job, blah, blah, blah. They took our job. Yeah, well, they're doing it now. It's no longer a meme. It's no longer a joke. They're coming in and taking Americans' jobs away from them in a time when inflation is through the roof because of Biden's policies. Energy prices are through the roof because of Biden's policies. Fuel prices are fixing to be even higher because he just cut off all the federal lands to oil drilling and natural gas production up in Alaska. So that's going to have an impact on especially the West Coast, but I would argue the entire United States energy supply and our availability and the prices on that as far as it hits you when you're putting it into your tank or when you're, filling up your propane tank or whatever. So, guys, we're fixing to be in a hell of a lot of hot water because of Joe Biden's policies. His anti-American, anti-liberty, anti-capitalism, anti-free press. I mean, it's kind of off topic, but have you heard Owen Shroyer, the guy from InfoWars, a reporter from InfoWars, has been sentenced to 60 days in jail for simply showing up at the Capitol and talking about, hey, don't go in there. That's illegal. Don't do that. Him and Alex Jones were both telling people not to go into the Capitol, and yet they're making him serve 60 days in jail for what? For being a reporter? For having, the idea that the American First Amendment protects journalists, against this kind of entrapment, against, it guarantees free speech. It guarantees us the right to peaceably assemble, which is what Owen Shroyer and Alex Jones were doing. And yet they're going to put him in jail for 60 fucking days, man. I mean, I could go on and make the whole video about the severe injustices that have been carried out by our Justice Department, if you want to call it that. It's injustice. These people, these January 6ers that have been locked up. I just heard about a guy that he'd already spent over, 900 something days, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but he spent around 900 days in jail already with no formal charges filed. He had a court hearing that was scheduled in October, but somehow or another they did some dirty work and they arrested his star witness. So now the judge is like, oh, well, I have to reschedule that. We don't know when it's going to be. So this guy is he's being detained indefinitely. It's like 1984 meets the Patriot Act, meets, the NDAA that gives, under Barack Obama, called for indefinite detention of these people that have been classified as terrorists. It all ties together. All of this stuff ties together. And I find it very interesting that a day after the 22nd anniversary of 9/11, of course, Joe Biden didn't show up. He's getting a little bit of pushback from the media and stuff on that, why he didn't show up. And instead, he was up in Alaska, canceling federal drilling lands and bribing the Iranians with $6 billion so they'll give us some people back on the anniversary of 9/11. Could you imagine any other person besides Joe Biden who gets treated with kid gloves by the media on a daily basis? Can you imagine any other person in the office of President of the United States being allowed to be the first president to skip the, the commemoration ceremonies or whatever on 9/11 and get away with it scot-free? That's what's happening. Only the people on the right are calling him out and saying, hey, man, you had one job. Every president before you has showed up to this commemoration ceremony, and yet you missed it. Instead, you were too busy spreading communism and socialism up in Alaska and giving away the Americans' wealth to yet another enemy of the United States. Should Joe Biden be impeached? Yes. Yes, of course he should be impeached. He should have multiple counts of impeachment that would render his the remainder of his term basically useless. He wouldn't be able to get anything accomplished if it was a perfect world and things worked the way they were supposed to. Now, what do I think? Are they really going to impeach him? No. They're not. They have no intention of impeaching him. Some of the Republicans, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and, a few others, would probably push for the impeachment, and because it's the right thing to do. But many of the rhinos, which I believe are the majority of the Republicans that are in power right now, are going to say, no, we're not going to do that. Well, that's beneath us. See, the Republicans have this ideology that they don't want to use the same tactics that the Democrats use because that's beneath them. Meanwhile, we're losing. We're losing the country. We're losing our freedom. We're losing our liberty. And yet the Republicans stand there twiddling their thumbs and say, oh, well, golly gee, shucks, we'll get them next time. If they do that again, by God, we're not going to let that fly. And then nothing. They do it over and over and over. And the Republicans never do anything. They're feckless. They're feckless, which in a weird way it's worse than being flaming communist liberal Democrat, right? It's worse to be feckless. It's worse to be someone who twiddles their thumbs when they could be doing something to rejuvenate liberty, to restore our Constitution, to bring all these important critical issues to the forefront and make sure that every news channel is talking about these important things. But they don't do that. They twiddle their thumbs. So they sit on their hands, whatever you want to say. So that's what I expect is they're going to, make a big deal out of nothing. They're going to pretend like they're doing everything they can to get this guy out of power. And meanwhile, there's going to be backroom deals going on, good old boy handshake deals. And they're going to be like, oh, yeah, we're just doing this for the Republican base. We're trying to get them fired up. We're not really going to do anything to you. Meanwhile, if you go back in time, before Donald J. Trump ever sat down in the Oval Office, Nancy Pelosi had already drawn up articles of impeachment. They were already talking about it. The mainstream news was talking about it. All sorts of people were talking about how this guy Trump was illegitimate and he needed to be impeached immediately because he was a danger to our democracy. Democracy. We're a republic, a constitutional republic. Don't forget it. Don't let these liberals turn us into some sort of a direct democracy, which the founding fathers were dead set against, as I've said many times. So you guys probably know that. But anyway, guys, I want to hear what you guys think about this. Am I wrong? Are the Republicans going to come in and put on their Superman cape and at the last minute they're going to actually impeach Biden and make sure that on the record, on the congressional record, this is never allowed to happen again? Or are they going to sit on their hands, twiddle their thumbs and talk the big talk? And then when it comes time for the big fight, they're nowhere to be seen. I think that's what's going to happen. They're playing you guys. They're playing all of us. Not just you guys, all of us. Me too. It's always, I can't remember who famously said the quote, but somebody famously said that, the problem with voting for the lesser of two evil is that you're still voting for evil. And so I'm not telling you not to vote or anything like that. I think voting is our civic duty. We need to vote. We need to go out and vote and make sure our vote counts. If nothing else, it makes it that much harder for the Democrats to lie, cheat, and steal during the next election. So I think that is very important, but there's an argument to be made that there may not be a next election. The way things are going with World War III and all this other stuff, there just may not be a next election. We could all be nuked. It could be, Presidential Powers Act, I believe they call it, where Joe Biden could say, oh my God, things are too bad. We're in World War III. And yes, we've got to stay this out. So we're postponing the election of 2024. I think that is very, very likely. In fact, when I look at the arrogance and the lack of campaigning and the lack of any effort to hold power that Biden is displaying right now and Biden's people, then I look at this and I go, wait a minute, he must have an ace in the hole. He must have something that he can use that he knows he's going to be able to hold power. Because at the end of the day, these people that are in positions of power, these elitists in the political class, their main objective is always one thing: to hold power. That's it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many bodies pile up. It doesn't matter how much money they have to steal or maneuver or move around, how many hands they have to grease. It doesn't matter how many, mail-in ballots they have to go out and harvest. It doesn't matter any of that stuff, except for that they hold power at the end of the battle. Because the mainstream media is on their side. They won't call the left out on any of these things that they're doing out in the open. They won't call them out on it. And so don't even hold your breath for that. But anyway, guys, I don't want to just ramble on. I want to hear what you guys think about all of these issues. Do the Republicans have enough guts to actually go through with an impeachment hearing against Joe Biden? I don't think they do. I think they're all scared of something. I don't know if there's a group of people at the very top that has dirty information on all these people. But the way Washington, D.C. operates, I think that's what's going on. Jeffrey Epstein type effect or hold that I believe, probably 75 to 80% of our elected officials are trapped by. Because if they come out and say something, well, they'll remind everybody about how Mitch McConnell likes to do cocaine, whatever. I don't know that he likes to do cocaine or whatever, but my point is that there have been some revelations that have come out. What was that guy's name? The congressman in a wheelchair, Cawthorn, something like that. He came out and basically said to I think he was on a talk show or something. He said that there are cocaine parties, and you just wouldn't believe the level of debauchery that goes on with these elected officials. And as soon as he said that, all the rhinos turned on him, and they basically made sure that he wouldn't get reelected because he was telling tales out of school. See, you're not allowed to do that. If you're in the good old boy club and you keep your mouth shut about all their dirty little secrets, and they've got secrets on you, well, then you're gonna have a huge political career in the future. Your prospects are virtually limitless in D.C. if you play ball with the good old boy. We've got you by the short hairs club. If you don't play ball, they do the Madison Cawthorn treatment on your Hawthorne treatment, and they make sure that you're not reelected. So. That's how it goes. So lots of people have been talking about it. Marjorie Taylor Greene talked about it early on, about how, basically what happens is if you don't do exactly what they say or what they want you to do or vote the way that they want you to vote, then you don't get to be on any special select committees or any of these other little, you don't get to play the reindeer games that all the other congressmen get to play. And so, it seems pretty hopeless right now, guys. I ain't gonna lie. Things are worse than they've ever been. And we've got a guy in there who clearly has advanced stages of dementia. He showed that from his Vietnam speech the other day. He doesn't even know what planet he's on. So, should he be impeached? Yes, absolutely. They should throw the entire weight of the United States constitutional law against Joe Biden and anyone around him that has helped to perpetuate this situation. That's my opinion. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Let me know what your opinion is down in the comments. As always, I stand for liberty to the bitter end. I hope you do too.